Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
You hear me okay? Yeah, I want to thank my wife, Roa. She's here with me, and I know she's in the back typing emails to the American Embassy to try to help her elderly parents to leave Gaza. It's been an awful nightmare, and I see my daughter Zaina and Maryam here, alhamdulillah. We came from Washington, D.C. this morning, and despite the fact that we had a memorial for my young brother, Majid, he was killed an hour and a half before the truce. If you remember, the truce was supposed to be at 7 a.m. 5:30, that's about the time they killed him. And I've been told he was praying Fajr. And his daughters, Siwar and Iman, one of them was wearing the Salat gear. They did not deserve to die. You know, Majid is not involved in anything, just a family man. And he was killed with his wife Safa, his daughter Iman, his daughter Siwar, his boys Omar and Ali. We will not see those people again. It hurts because, you know, my mom calls me and she's crying, and I haven't talked to her for weeks, and she said, do something, please figure out how to help us. They could not get a bulldozer or any machine to uncover the rubble. Their bodies were buried there. And she was protecting the rubble because she knew there is some stray dogs that will eat their bodies. And she's grieving, she's not very healthy, she's elderly, and she's trying to do what she can, and she's not safe because snipers and all that stuff is around them. In addition to the human loss, you know, talk about these dreams. It's a 4-story building that, you know, I co-owned with my brother, and it's all gone. And for nothing, they did nothing. They were, you know, the kids were sleeping. And what makes it a lot personal for my daughters is their cat too. They've adopted a cat from Khan Yunis. They gave it to my brother to take care of, and the body of the cat was found between Riman and Ali, and they were playing with her until the last minute. So it's a lot, and you know, I try not to choke thinking about it. But my mom has a lot of sabr, she has a lot of faith. I hope you don't mind me saying that, you know, I'm having some crisis of many levels because, you know, it's just these things test you. And grief, when I'm learning about grief, is very sneaky. You could be driving the car on the highway and then you let yourself go. And alhamdulillah, I guess we were blessed to see them this summer. We spent 2 months in Gaza. And for some reason, you know, it was tough with my wife because, you know, it was a hot weather. She couldn't get outdoors as often. But now we reflect, and we left Gaza on August 10th, shortly, about 2 months prior to the war in Gaza. And the memories, subhanAllah, I would wake up in the morning, check up on my mom, walk to my dad's store, then go see Majid, hang out with him, take pictures and hang out with his boys. It's a lot, and I fear that this is not the end of it. You know, we keep losing families we know. He's not the first person we know that got killed. In fact, poor Safa, a month before she was killed, her entire family was killed, and she grieved him for a month, and then she joined him. And we feel so helpless, you know, as an ummah. We're not doing enough. I'm safe here. I'm trying to get their voice as much as I can. We do interviews for CNN. In fact, Brother Nabil told me I could borrow his jacket for one interview today. But alhamdulillah, I did it with BBC on a rush, just as a favor for the host. And subhanAllah, I got a message from somebody I don't know who's an African-American brother. And he said he was moved by this and he was crying because of the family story. And that's the impact we want to have. We want to have our humanity. You know, we no longer talk about civil rights and state, one state, two state. We say, give us a drop of water, and that's controversial. Give us some food, and that's controversial. Did you know that in the last 50 days or 52 days in Gaza, 0 commercial trucks have gotten in? So the stuff that goes into the supermarket, not happening anymore. So that's what does that is breaks the not-for-profits like UNRWA, and that causes a lot of strain on people because my father-in-law is not necessarily poor. He has dignity. He doesn't want to go and give me a handout, but they're forcing him to go get some food and flour from those lines. and they're not even getting that. They're not even getting water, and it's Ra's lucky because her family went to the degree she's in the south, supposedly the safer zone. Nothing is safe in Gaza. Just remember, Gaza is 10 minutes east to west. It's a very tiny place. You throw a bomb, you hear it all the way in Gaza. So, I just want you to reflect about this and just the human cost of this. We're not really superhumans in Gaza. People have faith, but this is unlike anything they've seen before, and nobody's helping us. I've taken meetings as high as in the White House, met with people who are, supporting this genocide, not because I like them, but because, I have to be in the room. One of the debate I have to tell myself, I'm often the only Palestinian, I'm often the only person with a family in Gaza in those meetings. And if I don't tell the story of my mom, somebody else will tell that story. So please keep them in your dua and pray for the safety of my mom, Hajja Fatma and Hajj Omar, my dad. They're obviously, they're elderly, they're in their 70s, heart issues, hypertension, all that stuff. You have parents and your parents yourself, and it's you can't help it. Your son is buried and you couldn't even get them. It took 6 days to recover everybody out of the rubble, and it's not a pretty scene. It's just we couldn't even get a picture because of the whole mess. The only body that was recovered instantly was the body of Omar, because Omar flew 20 meters away and they found it in the street. Everybody else was caught in the rubble. So as you go home, reflect on this about your family and hug him and try. I'm far from perfect myself, but I just want you to remember it's all can be going in a second. La ilaha illallah. So UNRWA is an agency that started in 1949. It's an agency that was established for the sole reason of protecting, providing jobs and education and health services for Palestine refugees. This is the only UN agency that works in the Palestine issue exclusively for the Palestine issue. You've heard about UNHCR to do good work. This is another UN agency. They work with all refugees under the sun, but not the Palestinians. So UNRWA is the only agency that's exclusively working with Palestine. Now, we get support from the World Health Organization, from the World Food Program, but we are in Gaza, we're in Palestine. We work in 5 field areas. You have Gaza, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. A lot of charities have popped overnight because they always want to support Gaza. Alhamdulillah, we have a generous community, but the reality is nobody's able to bring in aid in Gaza right now, but for the UN agencies, which is UNRWA, the largest humanitarian actor. There is one thing I want to say. UNRWA is the agency that does the work. I work for UNRWA USA, so we are their arm here in America in fundraising, advocacy, awareness building, and Brother Nabil, the agency is sometimes very neutral. They might be boring because they're not going to take a stand because, they do want to jeopardize the aid they get because you say something and people will. In fact, before I came in, Ted Cruz said something nasty about UNRWA just now. But UNRWA USA has a little bit of liberty because we're a little bit independent. We could punch, I could just be human when I talk about Gaza. And so the basic things at UNRWA is we provide health services for mostly moms and babies, refugees. Some numbers about that. So in Gaza, 70% of the population are refugees. That means 70% of the people who live in Gaza are not from Gaza. Like my family, we're from a town called Asqalan, which is the Prophet Muhammad mentioned in one of the hadiths. Asqalan is in Hebrew now, Ashkelon. It's literally 10 minutes away from Gaza. The nearest big city to Gaza is Asqalan. So my grandfather, before the state of Israel, he would go sell his fruits, come back and buy things in Gaza. So 70% of the people in Gaza are not from there. They come from different towns around, including Java. So that should just give you that picture. Before October 7th, 60% of the population are under the poverty line. We were already having problems with, the siege of 16 years. which is, somebody reminded me, it's longer than the siege of Mecca. It lasted for very so long, and people are, I'm not gonna tell you that when we were in Gaza, you could buy things, you could find things. Things are very expensive. So before October 7th, electricity in Gaza, it costs 5 times more than we pay in the US. Electricity, 5 times. And fuel, you complain about the fuel price. Pennsylvania is expensive, by the way, with the fuel. In Gaza, it's double the price over the year. So if you pay $3.50 a gallon, in Gaza it's $7. Right now, people are paying as much as $20 for a gallon, and they can't find it because Israelis control a lot of those. Anything that goes into Gaza has to be approved by the Israelis. And I have my frustrations with the Egyptian system, but this is, they don't have to help us, but the Israelis are making it a lot harder for everybody. And so just to set the stage, there is a lot of, it's a fairly young population in Gaza. That means 50% of the population are under the age of 19. So everywhere you go, there's kids, and sadly, those 50% have never known anything but siege, wars, conflicts, military campaigns, and massacres. And it is just a lot. And we try to keep it together. Why is UNRWA in the position they are? A lot of people love to hate in the agency for a number of reasons. And I do want to give a question, Q&A after, maybe for a few minutes. If you want me to stop 10 minutes, let me know, just give me a sign. The agency has 14,000 staff in Gaza. Nobody else has this many staff inside Gaza. Most of those folks are teachers, doctors, nurses, social workers, and warehouse workers. So we estimate about 40% of the food that goes into Gaza, UNRWA brings. So about 55% of the people of Gaza are in food assistance from UNRWA. Every 3 months, they receive a ration of food that includes basic staples like flour, chickpeas, lentils, powdered milk, cooking oil, sugar. So these are the basic items. In better years, they used to give them some kind of animal protein like corned beef, halal from the cans from Brazil, or tuna from Spain or Japan, things like that. But that's not happening now. So the agency is already responding. Now comes October 7th. What happened is the Israelis called on the 8th, they said, UNRWA, you have to leave the north of Gaza. You cannot have any operations in north of Gaza. So whatever happens in the past, when Israel bombs Gaza, everybody who lives close to the borders, they would go to UNRWA schools, clinics, or warehouses. They take a shelter. It's not a safe shelter, it's just an open place at the school that has the UN flag. In general, you're safe if you go to those areas. At this time, it's not safe. So examples, we've lost 111 colleagues who work for UNRWA, killed by Israel. These people who work for the UN, about 65 of UNRWA's buildings, UN flag buildings, have been destroyed or attacked. They've been partially destroyed or fully destroyed. And a lot of people are taking shelter in those. Our numbers confirm there's at least 300 people who were sheltering inside UNRWA UNRWA's UN building that have been killed. That does not count the shelters in the north. For example, some of you may have heard about the Fakhura massacre where they killed, by the way, that's not the first time they massacred in the school, they did it before. So that does not count those folks because UNRWA was told to leave the north. Now when that happened, a lot of people, including my family, why is UNRWA abandoning the north? And my family remains north. They've gone to hell and back. It's been a very tough time for them in the north. Israel bombed the bakeries. They bombed the guy who delivers water for them because they want them to leave. They do want anybody to still remain in the north. Most of my family, pretty much all of my immediate family, but for one sister, they remain north. So the Israelis told UNRWA, leave the north area. So remember, in international law, the Red Cross, any UN agency, you never work in an area where one of the warring parties, they tell you leave. If the Israelis call you and tell you you have to leave, you must leave. You cannot go argue. We could argue, but you have to listen. Why? Because if you stay and they kill you, then it's your fault. And we cannot leave people behind, meaning in our school, if somebody's taking shelter, we have to tell them we cannot provide services in this because we cannot protect our staff, and then we have to go to the middle and the north. So that, just to give you some numbers, you have 50% of the population of Gaza, 50%, 1.1 million people, are kept in 156 buildings.
Wow.
Can you think of this? 1,100,000 people put in 156 buildings, that UNRWA schools, it could be a warehouse, it could be an education center or something like that. And that's heartbreaking. Now in the north, there's about 150,000 folks who are inside UNRWA installations, but UNRWA is not there anymore. That means we could not deliver food to them. However, in the truce, we did deliver, the agency delivered a lot of flour and tuna and hygiene kits, because you look at numbers where there's one school in Maghazi, that's in the middle area, where it's supposed to shelter 2,000 people. Now there's 37,000 people in that place. So that's one of the worst. In the best case scenario, you have 400 people for one toilet, 1,000 people for a shower. Can you imagine? It's winter, there is no fuel. And what's worse, the pumping of the water is not happening. They talk about 50 trucks going in, 100 trucks, 10 trucks. If we only have to bring drinking water for Gaza, just drinking water, bottled drinking water, we need 1,200 trucks a day. 1,200 trucks. So that's why it's essential to get fuel. And why is UNRWA able to respond? UNRWA, which is the largest humanitarian actor inside Gaza, part of the UN, is the trusted partner, meaning the US trust UNRWA. They tell Israel, UNRWA, they're transparent, they will deliver the fuel to the hospitals, to the bakeries and all that. And the Palestinians, we have the fleet of cars, trucks, warehouses, so everybody's working through the agency. Now, in addition to UNRWA, the only other entity that brings in stuff is the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. There's between the Egyptian one and the Palestinian one, but mostly the ones who bring. So anybody tells you I'm doing this and all that, it's Friday, we're Amana, not many people are doing that. So unless they're doing work through, and as of right now, tomorrow this may change. So it's a UN system, Red Cross. Aside from that, it's harder to believe this. And sadly, in Egypt, I've heard a lot of reports about some people in the Egyptian side that are trying to make money. Meaning, if you go, I know a lot of charities that went to Egypt, hey, can we help, can we bring stuff in? They cannot get a response from the Egyptian Red Cross, Red Crescent. So that's the main entity. What they say, they've been directed to a private company that's for profit, and if they work with this company, they couldn't bring in the aid into Gaza. So that's something I have not confirmed myself, but it doesn't surprise me. So this is where we feel not only that we're not getting the help we need, people want to make a buck quickly. And it breaks your heart, you want to help people, you want to bring food, and what happens with our money? At UNRWA USA, I'm going to give you some numbers that will really embarrass you to a degree. Our team is about 9 staff. We have 9 staff work in our office. In 1 month, we've sent to UNRWA $10 million. Okay, $10 million. MashaAllah, a very good number. Nothing compared to what Gaza needs, but for us, this is a milestone. We've achieved that because of the support we were able to get. Take a guess, how much money did Saudi Arabia send to UNRWA? 2 million.
2 million?
Yeah. A Palestinian gentleman here wrote a check for $500,000, and I'm not anti or a politician or anything like that, but it does not rise to the level of commitment. The number 1 donor right now for UNRWA, and remember, UNRWA USA is separate, but public information, Germany is number 1. They give like 80 million. Germany,
80 million.
80 million. Then the Emirates, 20 millions. Then UNRWA USA. That's from American private donors who want to support. You know that $10 you give, $20 you give, it adds up to 5 millions because our community is so generous. And people want to help. You know, you hear rumors. Our overhead, by the way, at UNRWA USA is projected to be 7% this year, alhamdulillah. Not because we did any magical thing, but because we've raised a lot more money than, you know, if you have a business, the fixed costs are always, you're always gonna pay the rent. You raise 5 millions, your overhead is 20%. You raise 10 millions, then you keep, so alhamdulillah, we're able to do a lot of that work. What happened is we have our funds, we wire it to UNRWA's account in New York. From New York, it goes to Jordan, the headquarters is in Jordan. The agency goes to buy flour, grain, and they buy fuel, they buy whatever they need right now. What is needed as we speak, blankets. When you get warm at night, remember that there are people who are begging for a jacket. They left in a warmer condition. I know my family is looking for blankets right now in the south. UNRWA distributed 500,000 blankets. You know that we already need 1.5 million because that's everybody wants a blanket. So that's where the money we're putting it to do that. And also for our staff. As we speak, there's 5,000 staff from UNRWA that work every day inside Gaza. Some of them, they bury their relatives, and then they show up to work the next day to try to help. And remember, 99% of UNRWA staff are Palestinian refugees themselves. So this is people who are from Gaza, who live in Gaza, who want to help their community. We're not paying fancy salaries for folks, but people really take pride in their UNRWA jobs. And UNRWA is unique among all the UN agencies. It's the only agency that the staff actually refugees themselves. UNHCR doesn't do that. They do good work, but this is a distinction we have at UNRWA because it's the Palestinian refugees who really do the work there. And, you know, so what can you do? We have this little flyer. Obviously, you know, every dollar counts. That's one to donate. But also we have an advocacy campaign right now. You could scan this QR code, you could sign the letter. We have another thing we have called Gather for Gaza, where people do a vigil for Gaza. If somebody, you know, celebrates a happy occasion, baby shower, or God forbid, a birthday, you know, then they would do like, okay, I don't feel like giving me gifts in memory or honor of somebody, give a gift to this organization. We've seen people do that. Now, it's a tough time because not only that we are getting killed in Palestine, we're also getting targeted here. Vermont is not too far from here, Chicago, and that's the one that make the stories. And you know, there's a lot more hate you see. You know, there's a Pakistani brother who was in New York in the park, and the lady threw her drink at him. Alhamdulillah, they arrested her. But people don't feel safe, and unfortunately, I don't recognize this administration anymore. You know, I really don't. I feel like, ooh, they really fooled us. And, you know, I'm speaking as an American voter. I feel disappointed. I don't know. I don't really know what's the way out. You know, we've taken meetings with a lot of folks here in the US government. They're understanding. They listen and they just tell you we have to do what we have to do. And sadly, I wish they would do it without having to kill civilians like my family and, you know, many others. And as recent as today, my great nephew Mazen was just shot today, and he's at the hospital. Little guy, you know, with really nice hair, and he's at the hospital, and you know, he's at the Indonesian hospital. That's the one that they keep bombing all the time. And before the tragedy of my brother Majid, Allah yarhamu, you know, I tell people in Arabic, Palestine ghalia, you know, Palestine is very precious, and we love our siblings, and we love them, and we love their kids, and the memories, they cherish the memories. It's hard, you know, you lose somebody who's real to you. Like, until now, I wonder if I text him in WhatsApp, if he's gonna respond. Wallahi, you know, things like I showed him how to use location share in GPS, on WhatsApp. And he thinks it's the greatest thing. Every time he sends me one, he's like, I'm here. I'm like, I know where you are. You're either at the store, home, or the masjid. Yeah, alhamdulillah, he's such a good guy. He fasts Monday and Thursday, doesn't really engage in gossip and backbiting. And my mom loved him. We think he's the special one. He's her favorite, but she never says. So you think about that, and you think like we want to humanize, and I don't have to convince people like, hey, this is not fake. They're not. Nobody, Hamas was hiding behind these people. I know they were sleeping. The kids, and somehow they just don't pay attention. They don't see us as equal value. But I hope, they look at themselves in the mirror and see how far they've come from humanity. And sadly, the people, we may own the street in the sense that people see it, but also the people with interest are not there yet, because they still want to kill more people in Gaza. And it's unfortunate and they're not coming for Gaza, Gaza happens to be in the way, they have bigger plans. And I don't know, I just want you here as a community, to recognize your power. Obviously, please, whatever you do next time, vote in the American system, whatever you do. I did go, there was an election a few weeks ago, I think, and I supported two Muslim Americans running for office, but everybody else, I voted for free Palestine. I'm not suggesting you do that, but I'm just saying, just don't not show up, engage. When a week into this conflict in Gaza, the White House invited me to go to a meeting, and I said a very bad word. I said, I don't want to see these guys, they're very sick. I asked my colleague, we have a WhatsApp group for Americans from Gaza, and I asked him, hey guys, do you think I should go? And everybody told me go, because you're gonna be the only person there, and you could have an impact. But sometimes and my wife tell me, we feel silly, like we haven't accomplished much. My brother got killed, and a week literally after the Vice President Kamala Harris called, and she wished saying, Mimi, happy birthday. Very nice, very human way, but they're not trying to take action. Even the statements they make, they feel to me like for public consumption and record keeping. They don't they say, oh, we do want to see another civilian to get hurt. They say it just to say it. They're not enforcing it. They're just saying, hey, in the future, 50 years from now, oh, we told them to protect civilians, but they're not putting reality, they're not inspiring action behind it. And that's what hurts the most. In the first 2 weeks, it was like kill, 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 kill. Everybody died. I was like, what? I wasn't saying. But alhamdulillah, we're doing this. Advocate, donate, make sure you go to UNRWA USA. The community here, they raised money already, so we want to make sure we make a big impact. We will report back as needed. And I wouldn't endorse this charity if I wasn't. So my mom is north. UNRWA was unable to help them right now, but they're still doing a lot of work in the middle and the south area. And I don't let my frustration at the situation and the Israeli, what they're doing in Gaza, to take it in the wrong. We tend to really get distracted and misplace our anger sometimes, So I want to say, it is the best way and the fastest way to support right now. Now, if you like your own charity, I like many organizations. I don't want, like IRUSA, for example, or Helping Hand. They're all doing good work. But the reality is, when it comes to Palestine, very few people can do the work we do. I'll touch on one thing and then open for questions. The orphan program in Gaza. Before this war started, we had 10,000 kids in it. God knows how many we will have after this war. And that means sponsorships and all that we're working on. And UNRWA was the only agency that is able to give the orphans cash, because we vet folks. We do not, if you give cash to somebody in Gaza, everybody's gonna come from the sky and take you home. That's the image we have. But UNRWA runs by everybody's list. They make sure that everybody who receives any help, they get it in the right way. So, anyway, sorry, I didn't want to depress you, but you know that we could do some work. It is unfortunate that We ask for a ceasefire, a durable one, a sustainable one, and they tell us no, but here is more tuna for your family before we kill them. And that's where we are. So you have a lot of power, and if you don't show up and vote, if you don't show up and give support, this is you're leaving your Palestinian siblings alone. People like my mom, they could be resilient, they could have sumud, but if you guys don't do your part, then we're really gonna suffer even more. So I just want to invite you for questions.
I just wanted to open up the question, but before we open up, I just wanted to ask you, can you educate the members over here, the community members, because people have this concept. I hope everybody can hear me, right? Yeah, alhamdulillah. My voice, so alhamdulillah. So people have this misconcept like, oh, you are a UN agency, you are supported by the countries, and can you elaborate, because you have to clear that misconcept which everybody had.
Right, so again, the UN agency does receive aid from some of those countries, but remember that money is political. Basically, they can take it anytime. If you remember in Trump years, he defunded the organization. And he from 300 millions a year to 0 millions. So that disrupted the whole agency, the education, the orphan, whatever it is that they were doing, and that's a lot. We managed to survive, and the tweet I told you about, Republicans love to say they want to defund UNRWA. And what breaks my heart is also many of the Gulf and Muslim states are not stepping up to, give UNRWA the funds they need. Those folks fear UNRWA because UNRWA preserves the right of refugees. Some of those people think if UNRWA goes, then we're no longer going to have Palestine cause. Hani wouldn't have access to the archive of their family and their connection to Ashkelon and Asqalan. So we receive, my work, we receive 70% of our funding from individuals, from people like you and you and you. 70% of our funding from individuals. We do receive some grants from foundations that are owned by Muslim or Arab or American folks who want to support the work, and very tiny sliver of support from corporations. So that's the reality. Our bulk of support is coming from individuals. Now, UNRWA, the agency, does receive money from states, but that's always not something I'm involved in. I don't work in that. And our money gives UNRWA the flexibility to do this program. We raise zakat money. We have a very good zakat program. We have sadaqah program, and that allows us to do things that Germany wouldn't. Like Germany is not going to do orphan sponsorships. They want to do education and maybe health of the mom. Alhamdulillah, thank you, Germany. But there are other things that we can do together, and that's why your support is needed as much as you can. And if you couldn't do that, give them dua and call your rep or write a letter. Thank you.
Jazakumullah khair. I will open up, first of all, thank you very much for sharing your personal life stuff, because that makes it more important. That makes everybody connect with the pain, and we are already connected with our brothers and sisters in Palestine, but your wording is really moving and all that. I will not be the one who will ask all the questions. I will open up, please raise your hand if you want to ask a question.
You asked me about any conspiracies you've seen, any Instagram video, expired food, all that good stuff you want to ask about. I'm here to answer.
No, I'm thankful to Brother Nabil for introducing us, so I'm thankful to him. So we will start with a question from you.
Okay, I
Yes.
have one. So, Jazakallah khair. In the world of fundraising, philanthropy, you sometimes have the privilege of being in the corridors of power and in the tame swamps of Washington and elsewhere around the world. There's a growing movement around when it comes to things like progressive values, right? Can we be progressive about everything other than Palestine? And a question that arises, because it speaks to what is our place as a Muslim community in the West, right? So if, for example, we are told that we are backward, we are told that we have too much baggage from other places, in my case, the UK, right? We're told of all of this. And yet here what we see unfolding in front of our eyes is a double standard, which is, clear and daylight. What has been the response when you speak to leadership around this clear double standard and the danger that it presents, our so-called Western values?
Thank you.
How much time do you have? I'll take another question and I'll address that. That's very good. I just wanna, my next question, sister? Yes.
So you said that the money, the funds that are collected go to your headquarters in Jordan.
Correct,
And
the
that's
regional
where
headquarters.
then they go and buy the supplies. So do most of the supplies get bought in Jordan?
Okay, so great, good question. I'll take the easy one first. No, they shop it, so they do a bid. Sometimes they buy stuff from Pakistan. Sometimes they buy rice from, India. Sometimes medicine from India. Sometimes flour from Turkey. So they put a bid and they say we need that 10,000 tons of this or that, and whoever gives the best price and quality, and we do have quality inspection. That's how they secure it. In Jordan, I've seen them get the powdered milk. It comes in huge containers from Europe, and either Jordan or Oman, they pack it. So I've seen those logos. Sometimes tuna comes from Japan. UNRWA really likes to buy, so we have control over the items. We don't like in-kind donations, like oftentimes great people tell us, hey, can we do codes? Yeah, it's not sustainable, like, you have to bring a container. So, and then also there's security issues. So I hope that answers your question. Your question is valid, whatever happened to Bernie Sanders, all of a sudden you remember, he's like, no ceasefire, like we've lost a lot of people there. We have some Mahdi Hassan, I think, they just canceled his show on MSNBC, which has really been a better network than other networks. I've been a lot of their shows. I'm pleasantly surprised by the solidarity we get from African American hosts there. Joy Reid had me a few times there, Simone. They're just really talking and expressing the rage and the frustration, so they're giving us a voice. It's easy for the other guys to attack Ayman Muhyiddin, but it's harder for them to go after Joy, for example. So there's solidarity. One thing when I meet with members of Congress in my personal capacity, I tell them, did you know, and I swear, wallahi, this is so true, I tell them, did you know we raised $300,000 in your district? Or 400,000, they write notes. I tell them, because if these people give their money for humanitarian causes, imagine where their political money will go. And that's, wallahi, they always take note of that. And I met with somebody, a congressman in New Mexico, and I said, here's, and they're like, wow, I had no idea. When you talk about money and political money, obviously I'm not in that game. I'm just telling them we've raised $500,000 in California, in this city, or in New York, and they become like, interesting, because they also want to make sure, they do it for a number of interests. They're not suicidal, like, we have our friends in Congress, but some of them are shy. So a lot of them, they hear us and they know, but what they do is, the easy win for a member of Congress to say, hey, humanitarian aid, yeah, give them a humanitarian aid, right? But they're not gonna say, don't kill them. So that's where they stop. So they try to do it this way. And it's unfortunate because, and I mentioned, they give you a tuna, but then they kill you the next hour. More questions? Yes, brother.
A similar question as Brother Nabil's question. So you say that, which we all know, Republican has cut down the funding, right? And they like to do that. And now we are very disappointed in the Democratic Party too. So we do want to get involved, but it sometimes gets confusing which direction to go to. So would appreciate if you have any insight, towards that direction.
No, it's hard, we don't have, when it comes to Palestine, we have very few friends. They may agree with you on the Muslim ban, but they're not gonna do anything for Palestine, or, sadly, we're alone there. This administration started good. You've seen the Eid party they had at the White House. That was nice. But then, what happens, happens. We have about 2 more minutes. I tend to be independent politically, so, as an agency, we can't tell people what to do, but, just vote your conscience and do your research. And I really went to vote in Virginia, and then I was gonna do Free Palestine, but then I noticed there is I think a Pakistani American running for office and a Palestinian American, Dana Barakat, she was running. Check the box. I know Dana won, I haven't checked on the other person. But I was so mad, like, they win if you don't show up. Because this way they could say, you can't count on them. Wallahi, this is, we have to show up. You could write your name. You could, whatever the local laws, respect the local laws, obviously, whatever those are.
How about go green? Green party.
I'm hearing that too, but I don't know, like sometimes that helps the other guy or the other guy. Yes, please.
One question.
You have 1 minute, 2 minutes?
Everybody has
We have last
Yeah.
question.
Last question.
Everybody has their emotional breakdowns. I had one this afternoon when I came to know that the ceasefire had stopped and everything began, and now they're using AI drones to target civilians. And kids are involved. As a mother, the heart goes out. But moving forward, I know there are fostering agencies. I haven't seen anything over here in Pennsylvania. There might be, I'm not aware of. But moving forward, what do we do as individuals? Do we enroll ourselves in fostering agencies? Do they even allow kids who are orphans in Palestine? Are they even sent to countries as refugees or not? How do we help that way?
I'm gonna speak as a father, not as an NGO. That's the very question my wife and I are talking about. And what I know, to the extent of what I know, the Palestine law allows for adoption if it's a fellow Palestinian adopting a Palestinian. That's the extent
You
of
have
it.
to live in Israel for 3 years, my research. that's what
Yeah, I haven't. Israeli law might be different, but
Okay.
there is also sensitivities around moving kids around. I think it's silly. I'd love, it's a conversation with my wife and I and the family. A lot of people want to have this option. There's issues with sponsorships where you send money. I think it's better if you get them out, get them an education. You will never forget Palestine, I assure you that. People go years and years, 100 years ago. In Chile, there's Palestinians who left out during the Ottomans, and they have a Palestina team and all that. So there is that, it goes deep. So there is conversations about doing adoptions for Palestinian kids, but it has to be around, that's respectful of whatever guidelines of Islam. But there's also the issue that we run into, frankly and candidly, is Palestinian families don't like their kids to leave because they think like, people will shame us. Like I'm the uncle, I could take care of them, despite the fact that might not be in the best interest of the child. Because, they're like, hey, we're raised by blood to keep, but you could get them out, get them to Harvard eventually, or whatever university you like, UPenn. So I'll be here around after, Salah.
We will, inshallah, have more questions and answer after the salat. So, and then we will open up for the food, inshallah, also.
I mean, we should do the food right away.
After Isha, inshallah. Yes.